Did you know that Olivia de Havilland and Joan Fontaine were sparring sisters? Shirley MacLaine watched her little brother Warren Beatty storm the spotlight, and Ron Howard's childhood mentor Don Knotts was actually distant family. These surprising connections reshape how we view the Golden Age. Loretta Young, Clark Gable, and The Secret Daughter. Loretta Young was a rising star in the 1930s Hollywood, a devout Catholic and a talented actress known for her poise and beauty. Clark Gable, meanwhile, was the king of Hollywood, the roguishly charming leading man with a devil-may-care grin, later immortalized as Rhett Butler in Gone with the Wind. In 1935, during the filming of The Call of the Wild, these two icons embarked on a romance that would lead to one of Hollywood's most closely guarded secrets. Their affair was brief and complicated. Gable was married at the time, and Loretta Young's strict moral image meant that an out-of-wedlock pregnancy could have ended her career. When Loretta discovered she was pregnant with Gable's child, a plan was hatched in classic old Hollywood fashion. She would disappear in Europe until the baby's birth and then arrange an adoption cover story. In November 1935, Young gave birth in secret to a baby girl named Judith. The infant, Judy, spent her first months hidden in orphanages, and at 19 months old was adopted by Loretta Young herself, who publicly pretended to be the child's adoptive mother. Clark Gable, to protect everyone's reputation, never publicly acknowledged his paternity. For years, Judy Lewis grew up in the shadow of two Hollywood stars without knowing they were her real parents. She noticed that she had Gable's trademark big ears her mother tried to hide under bonnets and even had surgically altered when Judy was 7. But the truth remained hidden behind studio PR and polite lies. It wasn't until Judy was 31 years old, long after Gable's heyday and a few years after his death, that she discovered her true parentage. In 1958, on the eve of Judy's wedding, her fiancé blurted out what many in Hollywood had long suspected. "It's common knowledge, Judy. Your father is Clark Gable." Imagine learning not only that your mother is actually your biological mother, but that your father was one of the most famous actors on the planet. Judy was stunned. She confronted Loretta Young in 1966, and at last, her mother confirmed the truth, breaking down and admitting that Judy was her biological daughter with Gable. The revelation was life-changing. Judy Lewis had been a working actress herself, even a soap opera star for a time, but now realized she was Hollywood royalty by birth. In 1994, she published a memoir titled Uncommon Knowledge, detailing the sordid tale of family deception, finally sharing her story with the world. The public was astonished by the decades-long secret, a real-life drama that could have been a movie plot. Loretta Young, embarrassed by the scandal, did not speak to Judy for 3 years after the book came out. Only after Loretta's death in 2000 was her own memoir released, in which she acknowledged Judy as her daughter and explained the desperate measures she took to preserve her career. Olivia de Havilland and Joan Fontaine, sisters at war. In Hollywood's golden age, few rivalries were as legendary as that between Olivia de Havilland and her younger sister, Joan Fontaine. They were sisters born 15 months apart, yet to the public they appeared as polar opposites, partly because Joan used a different last name, making many moviegoers unaware at first that these two glamorous stars were actually siblings. Olivia soared to fame as the sweet Melanie in Gone with the Wind and won 2 Oscars in her career. Joan, no less talented, captured audiences as the hauntingly shy second wife in Hitchcock's Rebecca and Suspicion, winning an Oscar for the latter. They are, to this day, the only pair of sisters to both win lead acting Academy Awards, but behind their successes lay a lifelong feud that often overshadowed their familial bond. From childhood, competition defined their relationship. Olivia and Joan fought over everything: toys, attention, and eventually, acting roles. As legend has it, Olivia suggested Joan take a different stage name to avoid confusion in Hollywood. Perhaps it was also to carve out separate identities for 2 ambitious sisters. Joan Fontaine? "I don't know who she is," Olivia quipped after Joan changed her name, a biting remark that hinted at the tensions to come. Sure enough, when producer David O. Selznick couldn't cast Olivia in Rebecca due to contractual issues, he offered the role to Joan, and Joan earned an Oscar nomination for it. The press had a field day comparing the sisters, and the public slowly became aware that these two actresses, competing for accolades, were in fact siblings. Their rivalry climaxed at the 1942 Oscars. Both were nominated for Best Actress, Olivia for Hold Back the Dawn and Joan for Suspicion. When the envelope was opened, Joan Fontaine was announced as the winner, becoming the first sister to beat her own sister for an Oscar. Witnesses say Olivia momentarily froze, then offered a polite congratulations. Joan later wrote that she felt Olivia would spring across the table and grab me by the hair in that moment. Whether true or not, it's telling that Joan perceived such fury. A famous photo from that night shows Olivia extending a hand to Joan on stage. Gossip columns suggested Olivia's smile was forced. Years later, when Olivia finally won an Oscar of her own, Joan attempted to congratulate her, only to be rebuffed by her older sister. The bad blood only worsened with time. The world gradually discovered the truth of their kinship through these very public encounters and through press coverage, which eagerly documented every chilly interaction. The sisters themselves occasionally fed the legend. Joan once wryly remarked, "If I die first, she'll undoubtedly be livid because I beat her to it," a darkly humorous nod to their competition. Indeed, Joan did pass away first in 2013, and Olivia lived to 104, but any reconciliation never came. They had effectively been estranged for decades. Shirley MacLaine and Warren Beatty, Hollywood's incognito siblings. Not every Hollywood family connection comes as a shock to the people involved. Sometimes the surprise is on the audience. Case in point, the sibling duo of Shirley MacLaine and Warren Beatty. These two have each had stellar careers and rank among the most successful brother-sister pairs in film history. But early on, many fans had no idea they were related. Why? Different names and deliberate discretion. Shirley MacLaine was born Shirley MacLaine Beatty. Yes, that's Beatty with one T. And Warren Beatty's birth name was Henry Warren Beatty. When Shirley took to the stage, she adopted MacLaine as her last name. Warren, following in her footsteps a few years later, modified the spelling of the family surname to Beatty, with an extra T. In an era when they were establishing themselves, they didn't advertise their kinship, allowing each to rise on their own merit. As a result, 1950s and 60s audiences watching Shirley in The Apartment or Warren in Splendor in the Grass often didn't realize they were watching a sister and brother from the same Virginia family. Shirley hit Hollywood first, debuting in the mid-1950s and quickly earning a reputation as a versatile actress-dancer. Warren's breakthrough came in 1961 with Splendor in the Grass, and he soon became a Hollywood heartthrob and a formidable producer-director by the 1970s. Both racked up Academy Award recognitions. Shirley eventually won Best Actress for Terms of Endearment, and Warren won Best Director for Reds. Despite their parallel fame, the two seldom publicly acknowledged their sibling status in the early days. It wasn't exactly a secret on the Hollywood insider circuit, but for casual moviegoers, it was a hidden tie. An interesting piece of trivia. Did you know Shirley MacLaine is Warren Beatty's sister? Over time, the public of course caught on. As media profiles and interviews expanded, the relationship became widely known and celebrated. Shirley and Warren, it turns out, have always been extremely close. Shirley often described herself as her baby brother's protector in their youth, and that bond endured even as their careers diverged. Perhaps surprisingly, given their combined decades in show business, they never appeared in a movie together, not for lack of trying. In her memoir, Shirley revealed that Warren once considered casting her as Bonnie in Bonnie and Clyde, but when he decided to play Clyde himself, they thought having real-life siblings portray romantic outlaws would be a bit too odd, and the role went to Faye Dunaway. Shirley joked that it was the closest they came to a team-up. Rip Torn and Sissy Spacek, cousins on the country stage. Sometimes a family tie can shape a career from the very start, even if the public hardly suspects the connection. Consider the case of Rip Torn and Sissy Spacek, an Oscar-nominated character actor and an Oscar-winning actress, respectively. Rip Torn was 2 decades older than Sissy and had established himself in films like Sweet Bird of Youth, and later as the hilariously gruff producer on The Larry Sanders Show. Sissy Spacek, a Texas native, rocketed to fame as Carrie in 1976 and won hearts as country singer Loretta Lynn in Coal Miner's Daughter. What many fans didn't know for years is that Rip and Sissy are close relatives. In fact, cousins, and their bond profoundly influenced Sissy's path to stardom. Here's the family breakdown. Rip Torn's mother, Thelma Torn, was the sister of Sissy Spacek's father. That makes Rip Torn a first cousin to Sissy's dad. or in simpler terms, Rip is Sissy Spacek's first cousin once removed. Despite the age gap, when Sissy decided to pursue acting, her cousin Rip was there to help open doors. In an affectionate tribute, Sissy recalled visiting Rip and his wife, the acclaimed actress Geraldine Page, in New York. The bohemian Torn Page household welcomed young Sissy, taking her backstage at Broadway shows and giving her a taste of the acting life. When Sissy expressed her desire to act, Rip offered 3 pieces of advice. Do it for the right reasons, not because you want your name in lights. Study your art, and don't tell anyone you are related to me. It wouldn't help. That last bit of advice may sound funny, but Rip meant it sincerely. He wanted Sissy to earn her success on her own, not through nepotism. Sissy Spacek did just that. With Rip's quiet support, she blossomed into one of the most respected actresses of her generation. And true enough, during her rise in the 1970s, few people outside their hometown or inner circle realized the kinship. Sissy didn't advertise her Torn connection, following Rip's advice, and as a result, the public discovered this family tie only gradually. When Rip Torn inducted Sissy into the Texas Film Hall of Fame in 2001, or when obituaries of Rip Torn in 2019 mentioned Sissy Spacek as his cousin, fans went, "Wait, Carrie and Zed from Men in Black are related?" It was a delightful surprise. Beyond the trivia, the relationship had real impact. The pair occasionally spoke of each other with warmth. Rip joked in later years that he advised Sissy to keep their relation under wraps, not only to avoid claims of nepotism, but also, self-deprecatingly, because he thought his reputation might not help her. For Sissy, knowing a working actor in the family demystified Hollywood. It made the dream tangible. The two never appeared together on screen, but one lovely footnote. Sissy's breakthrough role in Badlands came just a couple of years after Rip Torn had himself played a rural Texan in Crazy Mama. Perhaps the artistic roots ran in the family. Kevin Bacon and Kyra Sedgwick, a marriage, a myth, and a DNA match. Hollywood has its share of power couples, but Kevin Bacon and Kyra Sedgwick stand out for their longevity and down-to-earth charm. Kevin Bacon, the star of Footloose and inspiration for the 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon game, married actress Kyra Sedgwick in 1988. They seemed like just another happily married Hollywood pair, until they decided to explore Kyra's family tree on Finding Your Roots, and got the shock of their lives. It turned out that Kevin and Kyra are distantly related. Yes, husband and wife discovered they were cousins. The revelation came during the first season of the PBS genealogy show in 2012. Host Henry Louis Gates Jr. dramatically unveiled a chart and reportedly told Kyra, "I want to introduce you to your cousin. His name is Kevin Bacon." For a split second, one imagines their hearts stopped. But the connection, thankfully, is quite distant. Kevin Bacon and Kyra Sedgwick are 9th cousins, once removed. In plain terms, that means somewhere about 300 years ago, they share a common ancestor. Kyra's reaction was priceless. She laughed and said, "See, I knew it. As long as we're not first cousins, it's fine." Both of them took it in stride, poking fun at the find. After all, given the old joke that Kevin Bacon is related to everyone, it was a bit poetic that he was literally related to his own wife, albeit 9 or 10 generations removed. The public reaction was a mix of amusement and amazement. Here were 2 stars who had been married and had children together, only discovering after nearly 25 years of marriage that their family trees intertwined way back. Of course, distant cousin marriages are far from scandalous. Most people would never know, and it has zero effect on their personal relationship. But it made headlines because it was Kevin Bacon, the very symbol of interconnectedness, proving the point in real life. The couple joked about the discovery on talk shows. Kyra quipped that she figured she must be somehow related to someone famous because of her colonial New England roots. And indeed, she got Kevin. Kevin, on his end, learned other fun facts about his genealogy. He is a distant cousin of Brad Pitt and even shares a common ancestor with Barack Obama. "No kidding, I knew I wasn't getting enough respect," Bacon joked, embracing his newfound family ties with humor. Carol Burnett and Bill Hader, funny cousins across generations. Carol Burnett is a bona fide comedy legend, the red-headed queen of sketch comedy who reigned in the 1960s and 70s with The Carol Burnett Show. Bill Hader is a modern comedy star, beloved for his time on Saturday Night Live and critically acclaimed for his dark comedy series, Barry. They hail from different eras, and one wouldn't immediately link them together. That's why it was such a delightful surprise when Carol Burnett discovered that she and Bill Hader are distant cousins. The discovery took place on Finding Your Roots. In season 9 of the series, Carol Burnett traced her family history and got an unexpected result. Among her DNA matches was none other than Bill Hader. They share a common ancestor, making them something like distant cousins. Carol was tickled by this news. In true modern fashion, she emailed Bill Hader directly to break the revelation. "Hey, we're related." Imagine being Bill Hader, opening an email from Carol Burnett, whom he grew up admiring, only to find out she's actually family. Hader's response, as he recounted on Jimmy Kimmel Live, was, "What?" followed by pure excitement. The two have since kept in touch, forging a newfound friendship on top of their familial connection. Hader joked that his kids were thrilled to know they're related to Ms. Hannigan. This cross-generational cousin duo is a heartwarming example of how Hollywood's web of connections can span decades. Carol Burnett and Bill Hader actually have a lot in common besides genetics. Both got their start making people laugh on sketch variety shows. Both are beloved for their versatility. Carol could make you laugh and cry in the same sketch, and Hader's range goes from gut-busting impersonations to poignant acting on Barry. Now we know that perhaps a tiny bit of that comedic genius comes from shared lineage. Humor in genes? The show's host, Henry Louis Gates Jr., even remarked that humor runs in her genes when revealing Carol's link to Hader, implying that the funny bone might be hereditary after all. Ron Howard and Don Knotts, Mayberry's real-life relatives. In the wholesome 1960s sitcom The Andy Griffith Show, viewers knew Sheriff Andy and Deputy Barney as cousins. It was mentioned occasionally that the two characters were family. Little did anyone know that life would imitate art over half a century later. In a twist straight out of Mayberry, actor-turned-director Ron Howard discovered that his beloved co-star Don Knotts was actually his real-life distant cousin. Ron Howard, of course, got his start as young Opie Taylor on The Andy Griffith Show before going on to direct Oscar-winning films. Don Knotts, the brilliant character actor behind Barney Fife, went on to a storied comedic career. They shared years together on set in the 1960s, with Ron looking up to Don as a mentor and friend. But throughout Don's life, neither man had any inkling of a blood relation. The revelation came in 2023 when Ron Howard was going through some genealogical research. He posted a throwback photo on Instagram of himself with Knotts and Andy Griffith, casually dropping the bombshell news. It was recently confirmed that Don and I were actually distant cousins. In true down-to-earth fashion, Ron didn't even specify the exact cousinhood level, just that some shared ancestor meant Barney Fife really was kin to Opie Taylor all along. This tidbit set fans' hearts aglow. Imagine the chemistry and warm rapport we saw on screen between the wide-eyed Opie and the bumbling yet lovable Barney might have had a touch of family magic to it. According to follow-up research, Ron Howard and Don Knotts share a common relative named Lucinda Knotts in their family trees. The Hollywood Walk of Fame's official biography for Don Knotts even updated to list Ron Howard as his sixth cousin. So the connection is distant, but it's solidly established. They're blood, as one write-up declared. Neither Ron nor Don knew this while Don was alive. It truly only came to light thanks to deep-dive ancestry digging after the fact. Howard mused about how fitting it was, given Mayberry's small-town vibe, that everybody's related somehow on that show. He joked that maybe he should appear on one of those genealogy TV programs next, given this remarkable find. Julia Roberts and Edward Norton, a DNA discovery of Oscar winners. Julia Roberts and Edward Norton, two A-list actors who both emerged in the 1990s, had crossed paths at Hollywood events but never worked together. Roberts, America's sweetheart from Pretty Woman, and an Oscar winner for Erin Brockovich. And Norton, the intense chameleon of Primal Fear, Fight Club, and many Wes Anderson films, wouldn't have guessed they had a deeper connection. That changed when host Henry Louis Gates Jr. dropped a genealogical bombshell in the season 9 premiere of Finding Your Roots. Julia Roberts and Edward Norton share a distant ancestor and are actually DNA cousins. On the show, after walking each star through their known family histories, Gates revealed that Julia and Ed have identical stretches of DNA on one of their chromosomes, indicating a common forebear somewhere in the murky past. In fact, analysis showed a long matching segment on chromosome 9, meaning they likely share a relative several generations back. Julia's jaw dropped. "You and Ed share a long, identical stretch of DNA," Gates told her, prompting Julia to exclaim that while she'd met Norton socially, she never worked with him, jokingly pondering if a family collaboration might be in the cards now. Norton responded with humor as well, quipping that clearly Julia inherited all the good looks in the family, taking the news in stride. The degree of relation between Julia Roberts and Edward Norton is quite distant. Think cousins on the order of 8th or 9th cousins. In practical terms, they wouldn't have known without a DNA test. Their families have no known recent intersection. But discovering it via a public TV show turned it into a water cooler moment. Fans playfully imagined what a Roberts-Norton family reunion might look like, or floated ideas that maybe this newfound knowledge could lead to a movie team-up. Michael Douglas and Scarlett Johansson, superheroes in shared DNA. Sometimes the Hollywood universe aligns in uncanny ways. Michael Douglas, son of Golden Age legend Kirk Douglas and an Oscar-winning actor-producer himself, and Scarlett Johansson, one of the highest-grossing actresses of the 21st century, discovered they are genetic cousins thanks to DNA testing. It's a classic meets contemporary connection. Douglas's career apex was in the 1980s and 90s, while Johansson rose to fame in the 2000s. They even both appeared in the massive Marvel movie Avengers: Endgame. But their scenes and generations never crossed. The link came to light on Finding Your Roots, where Johansson learned of her Eastern European Jewish ancestry and discovered a DNA match with none other than Michael Douglas. The science. Both Michael and Scarlett share identical stretches of DNA on 4 different chromosomes, indicating a common ancestor on Scarlett's mother's side. Johansson's mother's family has roots in Belarus, and it turns out Michael Douglas's heritage on his own mother's side is also Jewish ancestry from that region of Europe. In essence, somewhere back a few generations, their families intertwined. When presented with this info, Michael Douglas was reportedly as surprised as anyone. After all, Hollywood is full of family legacies for him, but he probably wasn't expecting to add a Marvel heroine to the family tree. Scarlett, meanwhile, was fresh off learning other dramatic ancestral stories. Finding out she's got a connection to Hollywood nobility like Michael Douglas was a happier footnote. In interviews after, Michael Douglas laughed about the notion that he and Scarlett Johansson are cousins of some sort. It's distant, to be sure, likely in the range of 5th cousins or further, but he quipped it gave him even more reason to be fond of his young co-star. Interestingly, Michael's wife, Catherine Zeta-Jones, also turned out to have a wild, distant connection revealed on Finding Your Roots. She and actor Albert Finney share DNA, making one wonder if Hollywood genes just keep circulating in a big talent pool. In Scarlett's case, she also shares a DNA connection with TV host Andy Cohen, discovered on the same program, proving she has quite a few unexpected cousins. Marisa Tomei and Julianne Moore, college friends to genetic cousins. Fast forward about 35 years from that campus scene. Marisa Tomei and Julianne Moore are now both Oscar-winning actresses and still friends. In 2019, Tomei appeared on Finding Your Roots, and to her astonishment, learned that her dear friend Julianne Moore wasn't just a college pal and colleague. She was actually family. The show's researchers discovered that Marisa and Julianne share an identical stretch of DNA on the X chromosome, indicating they are genetic cousins. This twist was particularly surprising because Tomei's ancestry is Italian on both sides, whereas Julianne Moore had no known Italian heritage. Yet, DNA doesn't lie. Somewhere in the mixture of Marisa's Italian lineage and Julianne's predominantly British and German background, a common ancestor appeared. When Gates revealed this on the episode, Tomei was floored. Julianne Moore wasn't present during the taping, but Marisa eagerly shared the news with her afterward. The two actresses, who go way back to their BU days and even co-starred in a soap opera in the 1980s, were overjoyed by the revelation. They took to social media to gush about their newfound cousinhood, delighting fans with the knowledge that 2 favorites, one known for My Cousin Vinny and the other for Still Alice and Boogie Nights, had a real familial bond. The degree of relation wasn't explicitly stated, but given the DNA specifics, they're likely around 5th to 7th cousins. In other words, they share a great-great-great-grandparent somewhere back in time. It's distant, but tangible enough to show up in their genes. This story has a special charm because Marisa and Julianne already had a meaningful personal connection. Unlike some pairings who learn of a distant cousin but don't really know each other, These two had decades of friendship. They had even worked together professionally again in the film Crazy Stupid Love. Knowing they're actually cousins added a plot twist to their shared history. It's almost as if fate knew and kept bringing them together. Fans loved hearing that these two accomplished women, who both took home Oscars in the early 90s, truly had a deeper link. Some joked on Twitter, "No wonder they have such great chemistry. They're family." Pamela Adlon and Meryl Streep, an animated actress, finds an iconic cousin. Pamela Adlon has had a diverse career, but even she could not have scripted the surprise she got on Finding Your Roots. In her 2022 appearance, Adlon learned that her DNA test had matched her with a Hollywood titan, Meryl Streep. Yes, Pamela Adlon is a distant cousin of Meryl Streep. Her reaction was priceless. She literally squealed with joy and then cried tears of happiness, exclaiming something akin to, "Who wouldn't want to be related to Meryl Streep?" The setup was almost comical. Adlon had been asked to guess who her famous DNA cousin might be. She jokingly wished for it to be Red Fox, the legendary comedian, imagining perhaps some fun comedian kin. But when she flipped the page, the name she saw was far from a comedian. It was the queen of acting, holder of 3 Oscars and umpteen nominations, Meryl Streep. Adlon was flabbergasted. Gates explained that through some mix in her mother's lineage, she and Streep shared a common ancestor, making them genetic cousins. The specifics weren't detailed on air, but the joy in that reveal was the highlight. Adlon's eyes welled up as she considered that connection. For viewers, it was endearing to see a working actor like Adlon, who's well-respected but not a household name on the level of Streep, react so emotionally to being linked to someone she clearly admires deeply. It's one thing for 2 megastars to find out they're related, but Adlon's genuine, unfiltered excitement was relatable. It's how any of us might feel if we found out we're cousins with, say, the most celebrated actor of our time. And her instinct was to celebrate it. She even tweeted merrily about now having bragging rights at home, joking that her DNA proves she's officially part of Streep's extended clan. Glenn Close and Brooke Shields, blue blood and Broadway ties. Not all hidden Hollywood relations come via TV shows. Some are unearthed by good old-fashioned genealogy. One fascinating example involves 2 glamorous leading ladies from different generations, Glenn Close and Brooke Shields. Glenn Close, the regal star of stage and screen, and Brooke Shields, who grew up as a child model actress and later a Broadway performer herself, discovered that they are actually family. Second cousins once removed, to be exact. This connection stems from their well-documented family histories. Brooke Shields comes from a family with aristocratic ties. Her paternal grandmother was an Italian princess, and her American ancestry includes socialites. Glenn Close, though she famously joined a cult in her youth, actually hails from a prominent American family as well. It turns out Brooke's great-grandmother, Mary Elsie Moore, was the sister of Glenn Close's grandfather, Charles Arthur Moore, Jr. In simpler terms, Glenn's grandpa and Brooke's great-grandma were siblings. That makes Glenn and Brooke second cousins, once removed. This was not common knowledge at all during most of their careers. In fact, the news only really surfaced publicly around 2019 to 2020 when outlets like People magazine highlighted surprising celebrity cousin pairings. When fans read that Brooke Shields' great-grandmother was the sister of Glenn Close's grandfather, many did a double take. "Really?" was the reaction. These 2 actresses don't immediately resemble each other or share a last name. But if you think about it, they do share a certain patrician poise and strong jawline. Perhaps the family genes at work. Neither Glenn Close nor Brooke Shields has spoken at length about their familial connection in interviews. However, once it came out, people started putting photos together, even noting that they had been photographed side by side at that gala in 2008, oblivious that they were cousins. It's a very polite hidden tie, emblematic of old family American lineages. One can imagine if Finding Your Roots had either of them on, they might get a kick out of learning the specifics on camera. Nicolas Cage and the Coppola dynasty, a nepo tie hidden in plain sight. Not all hidden family ties are discovered after fame. Some are intentionally obscured from the get-go. One of the most illustrious examples is Nicolas Cage and the Coppola family. Today, many people know that Nicolas Cage was born Nicholas Coppola, nephew to legendary filmmaker Francis Ford Coppola and cousin to director Sofia Coppola and actor Jason Schwartzman. But when Nick first started acting, He wanted to escape the shadow of that name, fearing cries of nepotism. He adopted the surname Cage, effectively hiding his true lineage from casting directors and audiences. For a time, the world didn't realize that this edgy young actor in films like Valley Girl was part of a Hollywood dynasty. The Coppola clan is a true dynasty. Nicholas's uncle Francis Ford Coppola directed the Godfather trilogy, Apocalypse Now, and more. Nicholas's aunt Talia Shire played Adrian in the Rocky series. His cousins include Sofia Coppola and Sofia's brother Roman, as well as Talia's sons Jason and Robert Schwartzman, who went into acting and music. It's like a sprawling tree of talent. At the time Nick Cage came on the scene, the Coppola name was already heavy with expectation. So he made a bold choice, dropped the Coppola surname. He wanted to prove himself on his own, and he did, snagging roles through his intense persona. As Cage's star rose in the late 80s and 90s, the secret inevitably slipped out. Industry folks knew, of course, and soon the public learned that Nicolas Cage was Francis Ford Coppola's nephew. Articles and profiles would mention it, often in tones of admiration for how he carved his own path. Cage himself rarely traded on the connection. In fact, he famously did audition for his uncle, for the role of Dallas in The Outsider, but Francis didn't cast him, perhaps not wanting to show favoritism. Nick later joked about how he had to fight his way out of the Coppola legacy to forge Nicolas Cage. The reveal of his family tie wasn't a single aha moment for the public, but rather a gradual understanding as his career progressed. By the time he won his Oscar in 1996, everyone knew his pedigree, yet respected that he'd done it on his terms. This hidden tie is fascinating because it touches on the idea of Hollywood dynasties and the sometimes complicated feelings around them. Nicolas Cage's story is one of both embracing and distancing family. He clearly loves his family. He's appeared in several of Francis's films in later years, and at awards shows they cheer each other on. But early on, he wanted no assumptions made about him. It's a testament to his talent and determination that he succeeded in becoming a star, distinct from the Coppola name.